welcome to More Than Memos. My name is Victoria Brager, and I am here with Dr. Cana Uluak Itchuaqiyaq from Virginia Tech. Thank you for being our first interview, Cana.
Welcome. I'm glad to be here. Good morning.
Cana is an Inupiaq scholar from Northwest Alaska and assistant professor of professional and technical writing at Virginia Tech. And today we'll be talking about her research and about her recent article, Decolonial Dinners, Ethical Considerations of Decolonial Metaphors in TPC, co-authored with Breeanne Matheson. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
I'm really glad to be here. It's fun to dial in. Hello from Kotzebue, Alaska.
So I really enjoyed the purposeful and non-academic sort of tone of Decolonial Dinners. I really like that you framed it through experiential narrative and gave us a look into foraging in a Salt Lake City park that, being, around the area for so long, I know is probably something that gathered stares from the people that were walking around. And they're like, oh, there are these two people foraging in this park. So can you tell us a little bit about how this article came to be and what the experience was like foraging in a park in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, the article actually came to be because Dr. Breeanne Matheson, who's from Utah Valley University, is an academic sister of mine. So we had the same PhD advisor, Dr. Rebecca Walton, and while I was in my PhD program, we were friends, and she was living in Salt Lake. And but a lot of our correspondence is like text and Twitter and stuff like that. And one day there was something we were talking about urban foraging online, and I said, "Oh yeah, like a group doing subsistence, like we would go out and like forage, like here. I mean, we didn't call it foraging; you just called it like picking greens or picking berries or doing what we did, like just natural practice for, subsistence practice, like Inupiat kind of culture. And it was summertime, and I had just been in Kotzebue here in Alaska. And so I came down with some salmon that my family lives right on the water. And so I'd brought down some salmon, and so I brought some over to Bree's house, and we got together and we decided to go out like some greens to like make a meal out of it. So that's all we had was the salmon. And then we went out to this park, and we had an app uh and a guidebook. Like we got the app, actually we started using the app in the park, but I brought this guidebook that I had, um and there was no like inkling that, oh, we're going to write an article about this. It was just literally a couple of friends being dorks, and it was super fun. And we wound up being able to like put together this like salad, and we found these big leaves to wrap the salmon in, and these like seeds. So yeah, that's how it started. And then while we're out there, we're just, junior scholars thinking about like, ooh, could we write about this? And we did, and there were some questions that were really happening for us, because the way we were like talking about things and throwing labels at it so quickly of like, oh, this is decolonial foodways and blah blah blah. We then, like, during that time, we started like really thinking about like, is it though? Like what is really happening here? And most importantly, what's the urge behind this idea, like wanting to put a label on something, um, and just letting that label stick, but not, really thinking about like what that label means, and what our work is actually doing towards sovereignty or different things like that when it comes to decoloniality. So.
I see this kind of not being included in just graduate level syllabi, but in undergraduate syllabi where we're teaching future practitioners of TechCom, future industry professionals. And it really made me think of service learning and community-based projects and the type of care that you need to enact when you go into those situations, to be very honest and truthful about the type of work that you're doing, and to not co-opt or fragment frameworks, especially those of marginalized communities. if you had to pick one or two takeaways for practitioners from this article, what would they be?
One or two takeaways for me. I think the biggest takeaway is for people to think about the motivations of their work and to really try to navigate that space purposefully with intent. And I'm not talking about the motivation theoretically about that work and like, do I have a clear research question? Am I working towards a research problem? Though not that. I'm talking about the internal like determination of like what does my work do? And so I think that was the main point was thinking about like when we um when we when we assign like a label like decolonial to work or to extend it anti-racist to work or like we call it like queering something or we say these things that are really like um, theoretical or methodological ways for towards liberation really towards that if that work isn't about that really working towards and I'm using a very blanket statement here but like isn't for the aims and goals of that community from which those frameworks are from like if it's not really it's just like touching on it if you just oh you talked to a native person as part of your theoretical whatever like these people were indigenous so therefore it has to be decolonial no it doesn't that's not how that works like maybe if your motivation is more a me thing versus a we thing then especially with work like methodologies or um, like liberation style um, frameworks, those that means that you might want to question that. You might want to question applying that to your work or saying that your work is doing that because that's a big promise. Like that's what it is, right? It's like saying this work is going to help towards liberatory goals, right? Towards sovereignty, towards like those kinds of things, right? Like uplifting sovereignty for indigenous people. Is your work really doing that?
For wrapping it up, is there anything that you're working on? Any big project coming up? Anything that you're excited about that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, I am working on something cool. We are researching how to create and tailor an archive for an Inuit user because a lot of archives are really meant for an academic type user. And with that, there's like a way of thinking and a hierarchy of information that is really culturally like valulated, culturally laden. And so we are thinking about like what happens when you think about this through like a Inuit perspective. Like how do you do that? And so our partner called Trust is helping us with testing and thinking through like how would people use this archive? What do they want? And so we're hoping to create this like nest where like a design that's open source that that people can like and follow our lead and once they find a home like a place to store their actual digital files right they can port their information to archive and so we're looking to do that and with the ultimate goal of like having created this nest saying, hey, look, we've created a space for our cultural knowledges, right? A digital rematriation of our knowledges for our people. Then we'll go to the publishers like Taylor and Francis, who publishes TCQ, Springer, Wiley, all these like folks, and say, hey, there are whole fields that have come up and talked to us and asked us about our stories and our knowledges. And like they now live behind a paywall. And not all of us are connected to universities where we have access, behind that paywall. And so to create those, hopefully, those pieces to become open access, to be reverted to open access, and like culturally significant pieces with like elder knowledge, with historic place knowledge, those kinds of things. And then being able to link those geographically so people can say, like, my family's from Norvik. People can look up like what's happened in Norvik, and start, I guess, recognizing the significance of our people's contribution to the sciences.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you so much for joining us and talking about your article and talking about this coalitional effort that you have coming forward. Like that is super awesome. If you haven't read Cana's article, we will be linking it down below. Please follow her social account. She posts very awesome stuff all the time. All the time. And have a great morning. Thank you so much.
Good morning to you. Have a blessed day.